Hey folks, this is Tony with our latest episode of On the Couch. We have a special guest today to talk about the Basketball Card Hall of Fame, and this is Dave. Dave, I met on Instagram. I was lucky enough to have been asked to go on his show. We talked about the 1977 Reggie Jackson card. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Tony, it's great to see you. Thank you for having me on. And before we get too deep into the woods, I just want to say this is a really incredible project, and thank you for the time that you are putting in to let us all enjoy it.
I really appreciate it. Ray from Philly started this in 2018 when he did the Baseball Card Hall of Fame. Then we got a Football Card Hall of Fame, and now we're working on the Basketball Card Hall of Fame. So for folks who want to, if you don't already follow Dave, I suggest you go to Instagram. I'll put a link to his Instagram page here. It's Iowa_Dave_sports cards. Also, he has a great website, and I'll put the link here too. Dave, do you want to add anything before we dive into the Basketball Card Hall of Fame?
If you're a podcast listener, each Friday, most Fridays, I put out a show called The Shallow End, and would just love for everyone to check it out.
Okay. And what's the best way to get to your podcast other than using our favorite podcast platform?
That would be the only way. Apple and Spotify, they're both there. I've not figured out Google Music yet, or YouTube Music, whatever they're calling it. So Apple, Spotify, and sometimes I'll throw it on YouTube.
All right. And if folks need help, they can contact me, you obviously. Thanks, Dave. As a reminder for folks, you can get to the Basketball Card Hall of Fame ballots. Yes, there's two ballots. As folks know, there's the vintage era and the modern era, 25 cards in vintage, and now 26 cards in the modern era at the suggestion of Dr. Jim Beckett. All you need to do is scan this QR code using a mobile phone or an iPad. Use the camera app, scan this code, and then a little link pops up. Just tap on that, and I'll bring you right to this website here. So this is the Basketball Card Hall of Fame site, and we just got some important details around here. Mainly, voting started on the 1st, and voting ends on the NBA opening day, which is October 21st, and 11:59 p.m. To get to the ballots, just click on the vintage era ballot. That opens it up. And to get to the modern ballot, you would do the same thing. Click on modern era ballot, and that brings up the two ballots. We also have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll be looking at for this video. All right, with that, Dave, I say we dive right in. To maximize your time and also the watchers, we decided to skip some cards and go straight to the 5 cards you're going to vote for on each of the ballots, plus 3 additional cards. Of the 8 cards that we're going to talk about, we won't know which 5 will get your vote until the end of each era. Okay, so the first one we have is the 1948 Bowman, George Macon.
Yeah, one thing that I love about this card is that basketball is a newer sport, newer in quotes, right? So if you want to go back to the origins of baseball, you can go back to the 1800s or early 1900s. If you want to go back to football, it goes back 20 years before this. But basketball, for what we consider to be the modern-ish game, started with Mikan, right? He's the OG. Plus, the card looks great, and so I could not even consider my top 5 without at least putting this into the top 8.
Next card we have is the 1957 Topps Russell rookie card.
Yeah, the card is just so sought after now by collectors. Russell does not have a whole lot of playing days cards at all, just because of the gaps in coverage of NBA cards. This is his rookie cards. I don't want to give rookie cards sort of the end-all, be-all credit for being what everyone should aspire for, but I definitely want to acknowledge, too, the value of rookie cards. And this being one of the most important players in league history, certainly I thought this card was worthy of consideration.
The next card we're going to talk about is the 1961 Jerry West.
The logo, right? One of the first players that we thought of when we think of Clutch. Yes, he struggled, of course, to beat the Celtics. So I guess in that way he wasn't clutch. But just, when you think of we'd see these old grainy clips of somebody hitting a buzzer beater. And I just had these memories of it always being him for some reason. It was always him. Plus, then he goes on and becomes one of the greatest executives of all time, finding those players for the Lakers. And then he goes to the Grizzlies and he turns them around. And he goes to Golden State and he helps them. He knows the game. So I don't think there's been a better mind in the history of basketball than him.
61 Flair Wilt rookie.
Yeah, look at him. He was, at this point he had just come off, for Kansas and then the Globetrotters, and he was so far beyond everybody physically, even Russell, just because of the height. He's in the Hall of Fame for what, basketball and volleyball, I believe.
Yes.
Multiple sports. I he would be my first round draft pick if I was selecting vintage players who would be successful in today's NBA. Yeah, based on the skills they had then. Sometimes we say, well, that person couldn't play today because the game is just stronger. But if you took him now, and if he was born in 1995 and was raised and trained in the game with AAU and high schools and all the way they are now, I don't know who would be better than him. I think he's pound for pound probably the greatest basketball player of all time. Jordan's my pick for the best player ever.
Mm-hmm.
But if he and Jordan were born during the same era and received the same sort of training, the same sort of medical support, the same sort of shoes, I think he would have been the best.
And the NBA recognized that, I think, at the time, because when Making came up, they changed the rules to make it a little bit harder for him to score, and then they did the same thing for Wilt too.
Yep.
Fabulous players. We're going to move on to the 1967-68 test issue of the Bill Russell card.
I love this card. I'm fascinated by this card. And you and I know from our previous discussions that we both have a thing for, those cards that are almost more myth than reality, especially when they actually exist. To me, this is a much better looking card than Russell's rookie. The person who shot the Russell's rookie card looks like they went, okay, snap, and just walked away. He just happened to be sort of standing there. Whereas this one, it was deliberate. There's a famous video. Famous might be a bit of a stretch, but there's an interesting video of Russell when he's playing for the University of San Francisco. And it shows him basically running the full court with the ball. It takes something like 8 steps for the entire court, right? But he's playing a different game than everyone else. This, to me, is the shot that captures who he was as a teammate, as an athlete, as a leader, as someone who could do everything. Plus, you put to the fact that how hard it is to locate this card, and it's just really, really interesting.
Then we're going to go to the 1969-70 Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or just Lou Alcindor, as he was known at this time.
Yeah, and I'm not the first one to say this, so I don't want to pretend I'm being original. I don't understand how you have the Jordan LeBron debate without making it a Jordan LeBron Kareem debate, based on how many championships he won, how many MVPs he won, how many points he scored, the counting stats. To me, it's a 3-person discussion. It's not a 2-person discussion. Plus you have the jerseys and the warm-ups, that were worn backward or inside out for this set because, the licensing issue and the labor issues and everything else that went along with it. Yeah. So I like Kareem. I actually saw Kareem speak right before COVID. He came to the town where we live and just did a speaking engagement. And I'm just such an admirer of him intellectually. And then I grew up in St. Louis. I grew up in St. Louis where we didn't have an NBA team. The Hawks left before I was born. So I did try to be a Hawks fan, as you'll see a little bit from when we talk about the modern era. But I have a lot of family in Southern California as well. And so I grew up a Lakers fan. And so it was natural for me to want to include Kareem here in this set.
The next one we have is a 1970 Topps Pete Maravich rookie card.
Yeah. And, if you and I were doing this exercise back in 1975, I wouldn't have Maravich on there. But his legend has just sort of grown time. You can, I think, as modern sort of parallels, and you might laugh at this, would be not now, but when he first came out, would have been like, say, Trae Young, just a wicked, massive scorer who didn't always pass and frustrated teammates. It's kind of what I worry Caitlin Clark might become. I don't think it's guaranteed that that's who she'll be, but that's kind of what my worry is that she'll be a counting stats person known more for their individual moments than their team moments. But I love the green background of this card, and I love the way that his legend has been sustained over the decades, even if his team accomplishments fell short.
And the last card we're going to talk about in the vintage era is the Dr. J rookie card, 1972 tops, Julius Erving.
I love this card. I love Dr. J. To me, Dr. J was the first modern player. Yes, his career began during the vintage card era, but in terms of the basketball skills, he was the first modern player. Almost in a way that Kareem was the last vintage player playing the modern game, right? There's this weaving of their careers in a certain way. I like the way the card looks. I like that it's an ABA card and not an NBA card, the Virginia Squires. I don't think you can speak hyperbolically enough about how good he was. And he was hidden in the ABA. And yet, despite being hidden in the ABA, he still managed to come to the forefront and capture people's imaginations. So I love this card. I don't own it,
Great.
but I might someday.
I don't own it too. Wish I did. It's a really great card. And I like how we have the ABA ball.
The
So I
ball,
really,
right? The ball that George Mikan claims he came up with, the red, white, that's disputed. There is a wonderful book, if you haven't read it. It's called Loose Balls, and it's by an old reporter named Terry Pluto, and it's an oral history of the ABA. Check it out if you haven't seen it, but it's one of the most interesting and funniest books about basketball I've ever read.
all right, definitely check it out. So moving on to the ballot. This is what the ballot looks like. Obviously, I'm logged in as me and not you, so I won't place the vote. But we talked about the Mikan, the Russell, the Jerry West, the Wilt, the Topps Test Russell, Lou Alcindor, Pistol Pete, and the Dr. J card. Which one would you vote for, starting with the earliest card?
That'd be Mikan. So
Okay.
George Mikan's first. Not only would that be the first one I pick in sort of chronological order, it would have been my first draft pick overall if I had to pick just one card.
So that'll be your first card. Okay.
Yeah, that was number one on the list because it wasn't just that he's an older player who happened to be good. He was the first superstar, and it's from a legendary set. It's just the perfect storm of everything that you would want out of a vintage sports card, and so that's first.
Agreed.
Yeah, the second vote is the 61 Jerry West. Just it's a cool shot, nice set as well. I wanted West in there. I don't know how you could talk about vintage without talking about Jerry West, and so that's one of the cards I included in there.
And when we get into the modern ballots, we do have some cards that have logo man patches on them. And guess what? Even though he might not be on the card, that's his logo because he's the logo.
Yep. And then sticking with that set, the third pick, I went with the Wilt as well.
Okay.
So I debated whether I wanted to have two cards from the same set in there, because this is not a discussion of who the best players were, even though that was definitely part of what my voting was, but also we're talking about the cards. This is the basketball card Hall of Fame, not the basketball player Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
And now we have 261 Fleers in there, but there was another alternative on the ballot of a later card of Wilt, but this card just has some staying power with it. Even currently, and then that SGC 10 that got graded last year was a big deal. That PSA 10 card sold last month in the Premier auction, in the August Premier auction. Even though it was off-center, that became a talking point as well. But I wanted to have Wilt in there plus another card from this set. I think it's that powerful.
And I like your rationale around the set because it is a card. We're focusing on the set, and if we were talking baseball, and let's just pick a very popular baseball set, 1952 tops. Well, why just put in the mantle if you're going to vote for that when you got other outstanding cards in that set, like the Mays, you got the Robinson, you got the Campanella. You got the Eddie Matthews. You got so many cards in that set. So why just limit yourself to one card per set? Um, I like that thinking.
Yep.
Your next vote.
So,
Let me just count. We got four right now.
yep,
Three.
three. We have three right now.
Hmm.
So two more. So you want to scroll up a little bit? My next one will be
Oh,
67 test Bill Russell.
surprise.
For anybody who's going to push back and say, why not the rookie? This is not a ballot of our NBA Hall of Famers. This is the card Hall of Fame. And if we're going to start saying, well, we got to go with the rookie, then we might as well not even do this whole exercise, because at this point, we might as well say, who are the best players? Who is their rookie card? Great, let's go get lunch. But we're talking about the cards also here. So this is what you want out of some cards. They can't all just be the boring rookie card that looks like no effort was put into the photo, which is what I think that his rookie card reminds me of. Right? This is a rare card. It is a desired card with mythical status that not everyone can own, but everyone can kind of understand what it is. Plus, it is one of the most important players, if not the most important player of the vintage era, for so many reasons that I won't get into. And so combining who he is with what that card represents, I wanted to include a card like this in there.
And with your last vote for the error ballot, for
It
the
was really
vintage
hard for
error
me.
ballot.
Yeah, it was really hard for me not to include Kareem, but I'm not including Kareem. And instead, I'm going to go with the Dr. J. Right. So now we have a card from the 70s. It's one of the later vintage cards. This is a guy though who played into the mid 80s, who was the inspiration in some ways for Jordan. Right. They've spoke about the reverence for him. Uh,
Hmm.
he was an early mentor for Barkley as well. Although Charles Barkley says Moses Malone was his real mentor, but Dr. J was there as well. The reason I didn't pick the Kareem is because I don't like tall boys. I resent that they won't fit into my case unless I turn them sideways. Plus, there are other Kareem cards that I like more that come later on. Like he's got, I forget if it's 77 or 78 when it's a really great shot that captures his sky hook. That's not included in the ballot. That's okay. But just when I was walking at the National this past summer in Chicago, not the one card, but one of the cards I would look at every time when I saw it on someone's case was the Dr. J. And every time is this time I get it? No. Am I going to get it? No, not now. Because I was focused on some other things. And it is, pretty common that I can kind of pick it up some other time if I really want to. But Dr. J seemed like the right pick here.
Yeah, same here. It's one of those cards where I feel like I had many chances to buy. I still will have, but I'm still shocked that I don't own it, especially living in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess that the other one then that I left off, as I mentioned, why I didn't go with the rookie Russell. I mentioned why I didn't go with the Kareem.
Hmm.
The other one I didn't. The third one that ended up being left off was the Maravich.
Yes.
And the reason why is I think, this is my opinion, is I think that his reputation has become overinflated over time. And one of the first stories I remember reading, I don't know if it was Sports Illustrated or Sport Magazine or Inside Sports, those magazines that were out in the 80s, were more about his teammates' frustrations with him than they were about, hey, look how many points he scored. And when I think of his accomplishments, I think more of him at LSU than I think of him in the pros. So between some level of revisionist history based on his stats, probably his race as well, and the fact that he was not that much of a team winner, and that story embedded in my head about how how maybe he could have been a little bit better as a teammate. Not that he was a jerk; he seemed to be a nice guy, but just in terms of like who you will want to play. If you're playing a pickup ball at the Y, you'd rather play with a guy like Russell, whose whole game was like, let's win,
Hmm.
as opposed to what I imagine Maravich being, which was, I need my points.
Yeah, I definitely see that.